Okay, welcome back. This is lesson two. This is a lesson for my U.S. history class. If you have not watched the lesson on the Bolshevik Rebellion, make sure you do that first. Watch this one secondly. This is a follow-up to that one. So this lesson is going to be about the Red Scare. And the Red Scare refers to the red found in the flags of most communist flags. If you look at communist Russia, North Korea, China, Cuba, they all have red in them, right? So that's the colors of communism is usually red. So that stands for the red in the communist flags. So there will be two Red Scares. We're going to talk about the first. We'll talk about the second one later on. But we're going to talk about the first Red Scare today. And the first begins with the rise of communist Russia, which I already told you about. The Bolshevik Rebellion, why communism takes hold in Russia, and how it rises up. Right. So if you've not seen that video yet, first make sure you do that lesson first. Do this one second. Okay. So the year's 1917. Right. Remember, Russia is bowed out. In fact, they're going to dissolve and become the Soviet Union. And the U.S. had a lot of the same issues that Russia had at the time it fell to communism. The economy is not doing well. There's a lot of workers being exploited. There's actually even a communist party in America. So, today we think communists is like huge evil, but there was a communist party in America. And I might even insert a picture to go with that to show you. There's also a ton of labor strikes between 1916 and 1917. And it's at this point I got to kind of explain to you what communism is, right? So think of it from this standpoint. There are systems of government, and then there are systems of economy, right? So a system of economy is how you deal with your buying and selling of goods, right? So you really have a lot of different ways to do it. You have a trade and barter economy, right? Which is like, I'm a farmer, I got some chickens, I'm going to trade these eggs to another farmer who has cows, he's got milk, right? So I'll trade eggs for milk, right? And you see this a lot of time with people where they'll say like, maybe a teacher will say, hey, cover my class and I'll, buy you lunch tomorrow, right? That's a trade and barter system. And it's still really prevalent in third world countries, right? Poor countries. Not so much in America. But that's a trade and barter one, right? Another economy is capitalism, which is what we mostly have. I make a business. I get to run my business, make as much money as I want, do whatever I want with it, right? Then we have command economy, which is where the government comes in and regulates your business, right? So, for example, if I run a restaurant, I can't serve raw chicken, right? That's an aspect of a command economy. In a perfect capitalist economy, I can do whatever I want, sell whatever I want, and we've kind of decided that's good, right? That there's certain elements of a command economy we want, or communism, right? It's command economy. That says that you can't. I can't have child labor, for example. Socialism is where the government controls the means of production, right? So it would be something like our fire department, our police department, this very school that we go to. We all decide like, look, there's no way an individual could pay for a fire department, and we wouldn't want that anyway. Like we want the fire just getting put out. So we create public goods, and that's socialism, right? These are all different systems of economy, different ways to handle goods and stuff. And then you got different forms of government, right? Where like obviously socialism is where the government directly takes control of the means of production, but it could be a tyrannical system, or it could be a democratic system, like say what Canada has with their healthcare system, or other countries have. So what communism is basically the government comes in and they run everything, right? They decide who gets to make money, who gets to run a business. And in the case of Russia, it's kind of almost like an oligarchy. You have these like really rich, powerful guys, and they pretty much run the government and they set the rules. And we're having issues with that here in America too. But anyway, that's what communism is, and we're freaking out about it, right? That communism, because we just saw a major world power collapse to communism. You could kind of see why America would be at least worried about it. So in April of 1919, there becomes a plot that's uncovered about 36 bombs that are mailed out to some major political and economic figures. John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan. There's a Supreme Court justice that gets a bomb mailed to him. And one of them is the U.S. Attorney General, a guy named Mitchell Palmer. Now, 8 of these bombs go off, and one of them's going to kill the bomber that was doing all the bombing, apparently in a suicide. A total of 38 people die, and another 141 people are injured. So it's a pretty heavy terrorist attack. As you can imagine, Palmer is visibly shaken, right, having a bomb go off at his house. And he's going to use his power as Attorney General, and overnight almost, he starts deporting people. About 250 Russians in particular get deported, and he does not care why, right? He's not exactly going through any kind of due process. He's going to work with the president to help set up a new department called the FBI, which y'all know about, Federal Bureau of Investigations. And he's going to work with the new head of the FBI, a guy named J. Edgar Hoover. And they're going to jail about some 5,000 citizens, searching their homes, no respect for their personal rights, complete violation of all civil liberties. Now, if you remember back, Woodrow Wilson, President Wilson, had already passed the Sedition Act in 1918, and this outlawed speaking out against the government, right? Anything that you said negatively about the government was illegal. And this is really going to help Palmer, right? Because he's doing all this breaking of civil liberties, but nobody feels like they have the legal foothold to say anything about it, right? So he begins all these raids. He's breaking these people's homes, searching through their stuff, locking people up. Now, originally, the media, they love it, right? They're like, look, we don't have time for this. We gotta stamp out all these communists. So they're loving it first. Now, eventually, they're going to turn on him, and that doesn't help him. But what really ends up being the end of the first Red Scare, Palmer decides to make this prediction. And his prediction is that on May 1st in 1920, there'd be this event that he called May Day, where the communists would rise up and they try to overtake the government. And it's this huge hysteria. He's just whipping everybody into a frenzy, freaking out that, oh my God, the communists are coming. You know, what are we going to do about it? And it just doesn't happen, right? May comes along. It never happens. And of course, he's going to end up losing all credibility, right? You can't act like you're so sure of something like this and just whip the country in hysteria and then it not happen. Now, as he begins to lose credibility, you start hearing, the sharks in the water, so to speak, that everybody takes their turn going after him. And they start looking into him. They're like, wait a minute, this guy has deported over 1,000 people. He arrested over 5,000 people. And there's almost no evidence to any of this. It was clearly he was using his power just to go after his political enemies, go after anybody he didn't like, picking random people, just going after terrible, right? And so they're going to look into it, and he's just going to kind of be discredited. Like even now when people talk about Mitchell Palmer, it's like he's a joke. So yeah, that's the first Red Scare. It's this period of time with they called them the Palmer raids, where Mitchell Palmer is just using the FBI, breaking civil liberties, freaking out, getting everybody freaked out about this supposed overthrow of the government. Just does not happen. So that's the second video. Make sure, again, if you've not done the first one, make sure you should have done the first one anyway. But yeah, make sure you go back and do the first one. So, all right, and that's it for today. Thank you for following along, and I will see you in class as soon as I do.